Blog Talk Radio.
Writing your book is the easy part. Promoting your book so readers can find and purchase it is the hard part. Welcome to the Author Chat Show, hosted by author-publisher Lynda D. Brown. Follow us at www.facebook.com/authorchat. And to contact the show to promote your book, contact me at theauthorchatshow@gmail.com. Stay tuned and listen to today's show.
Good morning, and welcome to our Wednesday morning edition of the Author Chat Show. I'm your host, Lynda D. Brown. My guest today is author Robert V. Baynes. Robert is going to be joining me on the Author Chat Show to discuss his new book, The Day the Dollar Died. We will be right back to chat with Robert about his book after a word from today's sponsor.
PrimeStar Publicity and Public Relations is a full-service firm ready to fill the needs of their clients. Owner Helen Cook has more than 32 years of publicity, public relations, advertising, and marketing experience, and she focuses her professional talents on working with her clients' strengths to create customized, strategic campaigns, whether their needs are great or small. Radio, TV, print, internet, publicity, marketing, creating a social media presence, branding, client positioning, author tours, speaking events. These are just some of the services PrimeStar provides for their clients. For a complete list of services and other information about the company, please visit our website, www.primestarpublicity.com, or email Helen at helen.cook@primestarpublicity.com, or phone 903-654-0938. PrimeStar's home office is located in the Houston, Texas area.
All right, and welcome back to the show. For those of you just tuning in, today's guest is author Robert V. Baynes. Robert is going to be chatting with me about his new book, The Day the Dollar Died. Robert, welcome to the Author Chat Show.
Thank you very much, Lynda.
Robert, since this is your first time on the show, why don't we get started with you telling us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I've always enjoyed reading, but I've never really written a lot. This is actually my first novel that I've written. And I actually wrote it because of the problems I see coming to this country. I wrote it as a message, but I decided to put it in novel form so that it would be easier to read and easier for people to understand.
Exactly.
I live in the Midwest. I've got a boy and a girl. And so, I'm very concerned about their future also. And that's largely why I wrote that.
Okay. First of all, congratulations on this being your first novel. I truly, as I mentioned to you earlier before we got started, I have some exact same concerns, I'm sure. My son is actually grown, but I do have a grandson, and I just mentioned to a friend the other day, I don't know what type of world my 7-year-old grandson is going to grow up in. So I want to thank you for writing the book. Like you said, you've noticed that there's some things going on. Before we get into the book, can you tell us what type of research you did before you wrote the book to come up with your storyline?
Well, I've not done any specific research. I've just been paying attention to what's been going on for several years. I pay attention to like the national debt, the amount of dollars being printed and put out in currency. I do pay attention to what's going on in the world as far as the dollar being the global reserve currency right now, but I also pay attention to what's going on with China working to try to make their currency the reserve currency.
Exactly.
And so there are just a lot of things I've just been following for a long time and doing research as I see them. So I didn't do any specific research. It's just stuff that I've seen happening.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, for the listening audience that might not be aware of what Robert is referring to when he talked about money being printed, he is so right, because we're printing money and we really don't have anything to back it up. Back before all of this took place in the early 70s, we actually had our money backed up by gold. We no longer do that. So we're basically, honestly, just printing worthless money, to be honest with you. Is that pretty much your feeling on this, Robert?
Yes. Right now it's pretty much a confidence game. You know, people will take dollars because somebody else trusts them. But like you said, yeah, when the dollar was created, there was gold to back it up, but there's not anymore. There's nothing to back it up.
Exactly. And China is definitely trying its best to make the yen the currency, especially with all dollars. This is, again, the oil thing is very prominent in this whole scenario. So, again, I'm glad that there are people out there like you, Robert, that are paying attention. Okay, tell us about the book, The Day the Dollar Died. Like you said, would you say it's a fiction book based on what could happen?
Yes. I wrote it as a fiction book, trying to follow, certain characters. But I pretty much wrote it as I see is a very possible scenario. Now, obviously, I'm sure I'm not going to get everything right, but I really believe that if something doesn't change very quickly, we're heading towards some possible variation of what's happening in the book.
Right.
There are just too many things you can put together that if you put everything together, I don't see many other options. And,
exactly.
So
yeah. So tell us about the book. Tell us about your character John in the book.
Okay, John is like a middle-aged farmer, and he's been farming most of his life, like many farmers throughout the country. And, he's enjoying a decent living. He likes his freedom. He likes to be able to do what he wants when he wants to. And he just, he doesn't really see what's going on. He has a son, a 19-year-old son named Tommy, that is really more up to date on what's going on in the world. So Tommy explains a lot of this stuff about what's happening. But neither one of them really do anything to avoid this situation. Early on in the book, John actually has a neighbor that tells him what he sees coming, and the neighbor tells him how he's going to avoid it. John just, like most people in our country, that could never happen to America. America's been so free. It's been the greatest country in the world. And those things are all true, but it's changing.
Absolutely.
And that's the scary part, is the rate of change that's happening here.
And like you said, Robert, even though it's based on fiction, you can see some of the things that even on your cover, you've got number one, first of all, congratulations, great cover. I like the little Homeland Security information, the little badge that you have on there, and, the soldiers on there. We are seeing this take place right before our very eyes right now.
Right. We are seeing, we're seeing a lot more armored raids take place. The SWAT team raids, the last 30 or 40 years have multiplied dramatically. We actually have a national police force now. I have seen national police cars, which is Homeland Security.
Mm-hmm.
So we're seeing things get centralized and a lot more the arming up of the police forces and the local, rather than arming our Army and Navy so that they can go out and protect us. We're seeing a lot of arming up of people that in the government to try to keep us in line.
Right. We are basically seeing our privacy and our basic security being destroyed in the name of Homeland Security. Absolutely.
We're losing our freedoms rapidly.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Do you want your? It's very alarming, and like I said, there's so many people that are really kind of not paying attention at all. Did you kind of write this book as like a wake-up call for people that might be slumbering and not really paying attention to this?
Yeah, that's a lot of it. I wrote it because I started to see this stuff, and I see what's happening, and I see the direction it's going. So I would talk to friends, and I would talk to family about it, and explain to them what I saw coming. And, they kind of took it with a grain of salt. Yeah, well, you've got some weird ideas. That can never happen here. So I finally decided just to put it all in a book. And I did that. And the people that have read the book, you can see a difference in their attitude. I've got a lot of people that have gotten it, and didn't read it, but the ones that have actually read it, their attitude changed. I mean, my sister is one of the ones close to me. She always, I'd tell her, well, we need to prepare for this, and she'd go, yeah, let's get back to reality. Well, she read the book. Since she read the book, she said, I can see that happening. So it just explained it in a way that I'm hoping that people will understand and see it, for what it really is and what's coming.
Absolutely. So 2 questions for you. Are you currently stockpiling or putting away like extra supplies in case what we're assuming is coming is coming?
Yes, I'm making some effort to protect some money and some finances. To be honest, I'm actually putting money in something other than U.S. dollars. And I'm trying to get some finances out of the reach of the U.S. government. Because they're starving for money. They're going to look for it everywhere they can. A very possible next option they'll look for are retirement funds. I didn't cover that in the book, but that's one of the options. In past history, a lot of people are thinking, well, store up gold. Well, for 40 years, it was illegal to own gold in the United States. From the 30s until about the 70s, FDR made it illegal just by a stroke of the pen to own any gold as a private person.
Isn't that crazy?
A lot of people don't know that.
Right.
It's weird the government can take stuff away from you that quickly.
Right. One thing you mentioned, and again, I'm just very impressed with your knowledge, Robert, because you kind of sound young. You don't sound like you're my age, which puts me very close to 60. Yeah. But I love the fact that you're
over 50.
Oh, are you? Boy, you sound young. Okay, maybe we are about the same age then. Now, let me ask you this.
I've been around and seen stuff.
Oh, my God, you sound so young. Now, let me ask you this. So, okay, you mentioned retirement funds. Now, and just to put it out there, I am a huge Robert Kiyosaki fan, and he's the one that wrote the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He actually, in his book, Rich Dad's Prophecy, right, he actually predicted what we went through in 2008 and 2009 with the financial collapse, and I actually read his book in 2004. So that was really a wake-up call for me to let me know that this man was really right on track. Now, you mentioned retirement funds. Now, since we're both in our 50s, we remember when we first started working. I started in the workforce maybe around the 70s, early 70s. Got graduated in 76, just to kind of put my age out there. And when I went into the workforce, when you signed up for a job, they gave you a pension or a retirement plan. And back then they were called, is it DCB, where it wasn't tied into the stock market. It was tied into your company, setting aside money for your retirement. Right. Okay, one thing Robert discussed in his book is how they then decided, right after they decided not to back the dollar with gold, why not have these corporations put money in a 401k, which, believe it or not, and a lot of people are not aware of this, is tied to the stock market. I can't begin to tell you, after the crash of 2008, how many of my coworkers lost a lot of money that had been saving, working on a job 10, 15, 20 years, had their money in their 401k, and when the stock market crashed, so did their 401k.
Yeah, a lot of people have. I mean, I've talked to people who lost $500,000 or more through that.
Exactly.
And
now, do you talk about that in your book?
No, I don't really mention that in the book.
Okay.
There are so many other issues that I talked about. That's past history. Now, one thing I do see as a great possibility for retirement funds and they've already come up with that, the idea of it is that for your, quote, safety, they may require retirement funds to be invested in government bonds.
How risky is that?
Well, how safe do you think our government is?
Exactly.
Exactly. But that's a way for them to get a bunch of money.
Exactly. Not for our benefit. Exactly. Wow. Not for our benefit, but for the government's benefit. And let me just say again, for those of you that are tuning in, I am talking to author Robert V. Baynes. His book is called The Day the Dollar Died. Now, his book is fiction, but he's talking about some things that are on the horizon that we really need to start paying some serious attention to. I mean, I really believe that with everything in me. Now, another thing that you mentioned that I'd like to ask you about, you mentioned that you're in the Midwest.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also in the Midwest. I'm literally about a mile and a half from Monsanto. And I know that a lot of the farmers have had some real issues with the GMO products and Monsanto. Do you mention this in your book?
I don't cover it a lot. I do mention that John, the main character, decided to go organic.
Okay.
But I don't really mention a lot with Monsanto. One of the issues that concerns me more that is in the book, that plays a big part of it, is there's an executive order that was signed, I believe it was March 2012, that grants the power for the president and the organizations under him to take control of all resources in the United States in case of an emergency.
That's right.
Or problem. And, it specifically lists all food, all water resources. And if you read it literally, it could mean the food in your freezer.
Exactly.
You know, it could become illegal to stockpile food.
Mhm.
And so that I think is almost one of the greater dangers we have, because I don't see how we could not have a crisis coming very soon with the situation, the dollars in, the national debt. You know, if the dollar starts to lose confidence anywhere, you know, it could go down very quickly. It may happen even quicker than what I wrote in the book. I don't know.
Okay.
You know, it could happen because there have been countries like Cyprus and Argentina where they woke up and the banks were closed. They couldn't get their money out.
Right.
And so it could happen that quickly.
Are you there?
A couple of books. Yes. Yeah, a couple of books that I've read. I don't know if you've read them, by Jonathan Cahn. Oh
my goodness, yeah.
You know, he has a lot to say about that too, and I've read those, which, you know, make a lot of sense.
Yes.
And
I was such a fan of the book. When I was employed at our local library, I requested that they put that book in the collection. And it was so surprising to me that it was very rarely checked out.
Yeah,
because
that's surprising.
Yeah.
But, you know, my book basically has a lot the same message as The Harbinger.
Okay.
But it's a totally different type of reading. It comes at it from a totally different point of view. It actually reads very quickly once someone gets into it. I've had people mention that. Even my mom, she passed away this February, but she got to read the first copy of it. And she mentioned how it went so fast. It was so easy to read. It moved, you know. The first few chapters are largely introducing the characters. And then after that, it just starts moving very quickly. I had a cousin that took it home and started reading at 9 o'clock at night, and he just stayed up and read it till he finished about midnight, all in one night. So it's not like it's a lot of books I read, you know, are really stiff and they're hard to understand, and you almost need a dictionary to understand them. It's not like that. It's a very easy, light read. But I think it gets the message across.
Absolutely. First of all, I'm going to give you my email address, Robert. Now, I don't do this for a lot of authors because I just don't have the time. But since we're so on the same page, we have read the exact same people that are saying what we're saying. I would like for you to send me a copy of the book so I can do a review for it on Amazon. I am an Amazon reviewer. And I'm going to repeat this for all my authors that are listening. Unfortunately, because of time constraints, I cannot read every author's book that comes on the show. They trust me. They try to send it to me. But when there's a book that I think that's really important and needs to get out there, and what I like about your book, you put it in fiction form. People are a little bit, they'll read it a little quicker in fiction form than they will as nonfiction, for the simple fact that I have discovered, Robert, that a lot of people, they don't want to know the truth.
Right.
They would prefer to keep their head in the sand. I just had this conversation with my girlfriend last night, and then unfortunately, when something hits, it's like, why? How did this happen? Why? What are we going to do? And it's like, we tried to warn you. And I think since you mentioned that Jonathan Cahn is, and have you read his book, The Shemitah?
The Mystery of the Shemitah?
Yes.
Yes, I've read that.
Yes, he is, I think, 100% on point. Robert Kiyosaki, like I mentioned, also right on point. So I would love to read your book and do a review on Amazon and help you promote this book. because I think it's something that people need to wake up and pay attention to, because when I tell you, when it hits, it's going to hit hard. And let me bring this to your attention. The recent Chinese hacking of the U.S. Personnel of Management. As a matter of fact, believe it or not, I used to work for that here in St. Louis at the Record Center, U.S. Personnel Management System, where all the government employee information is there, and also Anthem, the Blue Cross Blue Shield health insurance. They're now saying was actually hacked into by China. Does that also make you concerned that what we're talking about is really, like you said, is right around the corner?
Yeah, now I don't have anything like that in the book.
Yeah.
But I think it speaks to our weakness as far as being able to defend ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're not really doing anything about it.
Right.
And
Exactly.
I can't imagine, if we were back in Ronald Reagan days, we would have done something about it seriously.
Oh, absolutely.
That was, back then it was totally different.
Yes.
Nobody tried anything with the United States, but I think we have weakened to the point where we have let in a lot of things. I mean, our border with Mexico is so porous that, and there's an ISIS training camp right over the border. So who knows who's getting in and what they're doing and what they're planning on doing. And stuff like that is in the book a little. The book was actually written before ISIS became very big news, but it's I still think the radical Islamic threat is a major issue and was then.
Mhm. I agree 100%. If you have a piece of paper and a pencil, I'm going to give you the email address to the Author Chat Show, so that way I can then send you my address so that we can get a copy of the book so that I can read it and review it. You want to send that to the Author Chat Show at gmail.com.
Okay. That's pretty
And
good.
we're going to do and it is the Author Chat Show at gmail.com. And we're going to do everything that we can to promote this book. There was another book, and I don't have it in front of me, but I don't want to confuse my listeners. So, again, for those of you that are listening in, the book is called The Day the Dollar Died. The author is Robert Baynes, and I am pronouncing that correctly, right?
Yes.
Okay, Baynes. It's available on Amazon in Kindle format for $2.99 or paperback for $12.41. I highly recommend, even though I haven't read it yet. If you've listened to this interview, you see that Robert and I never met each other or totally on the same page. That there is definitely something drastic coming down the pipeline, and you need to be aware. You need to wake up and do your homework and start making preparations for whatever we're about to face. And you know what? I'm going to really go on the line here, Robert, and this, again, has nothing to do with your book, but with our conversation in general, I say we might be looking at events changing drastically as early as the end of 2015 or for sure 2016.
Yes, I do that. I agree. And one thing that people have trouble believing, and I often tell them, they always talk about this coming election. And I have to ask them, I said, what makes you think there's going to be another election? Because I'm not so sure there is going to be.
Right. And tell our listening audience why, in case they're not aware of what could actually happen, and President Obama can actually do a third term. Tell our listeners why you say that.
Well, if we have a major financial currency crisis, which a lot of people, I know Ron Paul and others are suggesting we could have, and I agree, I think we could have, then we would have, crime would rise drastically because people wouldn't be able to buy their food, so they'd have to go steal it. And I think at that point the government would probably declare martial law.
Right.
And everything would change. I mean, you wouldn't have rights.
Right.
None of us would have rights. Basically, we would have to do whatever the armed people that came told us to do. And that's largely covered in the book.
Exactly. And that also means that we would not have to have an election. He could actually do another term because of the chaos.
Basically,
exactly.
The dictatorship.
Exactly. Yeah, because of the chaos that's going around. Well, wow. Well, Robert, believe it or not, our time is up for today. This has been fascinating. As soon as I get an opportunity, I'm going to send you the link for the YouTube video of this. And again, you send me an email so I can get a copy of the book and get this out there for you. It's been great having you on the show and sharing your book with us and also your thoughts on what's going on. And it's just been an absolute pleasure chatting with you this morning.
Okay, thank you. It's been great talking to you also.
Okay, sweetheart. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
All right. So, again, the author is Robert V. Baynes. The title of the book is The Day the Dollar Died. It's a fiction book based on the collapse of the dollar. And as you heard, it's something that he and I both think is literally right around the corner. You might not agree with that. You might. But my goal is to wake up my listening audience and ask that you get a copy of the book, and then you want to pick up Jonathan Cahn. I'm so glad he mentioned that. I'm a huge fan of Jonathan Cahn. For those of you that are Christians, you've probably seen him on like the Jim Baker Show, the 700 Club. His book is called The Harbinger. That's the first book that came out, and he talked about 9/11 and where it's actually, believe it or not, noted in the Bible about what happened there, and then the mystery of the Shemitah. And I say that because I like how it says, but I think it's also pronounced that way. Jonathan Cahn is actually a Jewish rabbi, and he is out here, what I consider, and if you go to Ezekiel 3:17, I think he's one of the watchmen on the wall, that God has put it on his heart to alert the people that we need to start paying attention about what's going on, and, do your due diligence, and then make arrangements to make sure that your family is safe, secure, your money is secure, in case what Robert and I were chatting about actually comes to pass. So thank you so much for joining in with me today on this Wednesday edition of our Author Chat show. We have revamped the Wednesday again because I've got so many authors coming eager to share their book on the show, and I love that because one of the things that I have a passion for is assisting authors in promoting their books. And if you are an author, and if you like the show, and if you're interested in coming on the show, and after the show, like I was telling Robert, I do convert the audio interview into a YouTube video for our Author Chat YouTube channel. Just send me an email at theauthorchatshow@gmail.com. Again, that's theauthorchatshow@gmail.com. We are now broadcasting Saturday, Sundays from 4 to 4:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, and Wednesday mornings from 10 to 10:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. So drop me a line. Be more than happy to get you on the show. You can also find us on radioguestlist.com. Another great resource for authors that are looking for ways to promote their book through live radio interviews. And I'm a huge fan of radioguestlist.com, so I definitely wanted to give them a shout out on my show. Well, enjoy the rest of your Wednesday, and we'll catch you here Saturday on the Author Chat Show for another edition. Goodbye.